Welcome into a new BuffStampede Radio. Adam Munsterteiger, the publisher of BuffStampede.com, joined by football analyst William Gardner, and we get to recap Colorado's first week of spring ball. Just two practices, both conducted in shorts. So we're going to try to temper some of those big impressions that maybe will form throughout those 15 spring practices. But William, it's been nice to at least see those guys get out there and run around 11 on 11 a little bit.
Well, it's always good to see actual football. I don't know that anybody wants to talk about football. We've got to talk contracts and NIL and all that junk. But it's nice to have them out there practicing, and good to get these coaches out there. And you see the excitement, I think, for the coaches, too, when they get started, especially some of these new, guys that are new into the profession. It's fun to see Garode and Pecco and guys like that out there working with these guys. And they, that from what I've seen, they both kind of look like naturals.
Yeah, it was fun getting a chance to talk to them this past week. I'm going to get your reaction on that, but let's not get further into this podcast without burying the lead here. It's the fact that Denzel Washington spoke to the team for what's like a good 30, 40 minutes before their first spring practice. Does it get any cooler than that? I don't know.
I don't know. I think that's pretty top of the heap, but there's probably other things that could compete. But I don't know, without thinking about it too much. But
just say yes. Just say yes. It's Denzel freaking Washington.
Well, I'm an old guy, man. I don't get worked up. I got a heart. I got to watch my heart and all that kind of junk. But yeah, you watch him, and I don't know. Every time he gives that big smile, just kind of, you can't help but feel good about watching him in anything he does.
Yeah. What are your favorite Denzel Washington movies that he's had over the years? There's so many.
There's so many. It's hard to pick. I went back. I actually found a list he's got 51 movies, and I had to go back. And I was like, some of them like, oh shit, totally forgot about that one. But I ended up with 5 on the top for me. I think one I'd mention right off the bat, because we were also talking about Gene Hackman on the board this last week. So Crimson Tide.
Rest in peace. Just an amazing actor. So many different roles that he played in.
Right. He's another guy, probably 100 different things, but him and Denzel and Crimson Tide was just electric. I mean, they just were just like two freaking lions in a cage, and you watch that. And then, okay, speaking of that kind of connection, another one I liked, it was totally different atmosphere, but with a great co-lead, was Two Guns with Mark Wahlberg, Marky Mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was just a super fun movie, and those two guys, they just clearly had fun together, and then I don't know, for the third one, I think another one with a great co-actor is Man on Fire with Christopher Walken, which is just a great underrated movie. And I think, I don't know, it's hard not to go with Training Day as the best one ever. Playing that bad guy, he's just freaking brutal. It's just amazing, and then I guess my favorite one that gives me, that just made me feel good at the end was Equalizer 3 for some reason.
Okay.
And then the funny thing about Equalizer.
What would you compare those Equalizer movies to? Because I've not seen any of those, and yeah, there's a lot of buzz with them. Is there like another movie franchise you would kind of compare that to?
I don't know. I just want to say real quick though that the Equalizer 3 teams him back up with Dakota Fanning, who was with him on Man on Fire when she was just a little girl.
Yeah,
now she's an adult. And that was a lot of fun to see those two together. But I think Equalizer is like, oh God, I don't know. I can't think of anything that it's quite exactly like.
It's really worth watching though, all three of them.
I thought all three of them were a lot of fun. I think you got to watch the first one to kind of get the feeling of what the series is about. The second one's not so good as the 1 and 3, but I just thought they were a lot of fun. I mean, they're just kind of your, I don't know, in a way, kind of your standard good guy gets revenge on the bad guys kind of things. There's one scene in the first one where he goes into a room full of Russian mafia thugs, and he clicks his watch to start the stopwatch, and he clicks it off after they're all dead. I don't know. It just really was a good movie to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But all those, I mean, there's others I could list off. My God, Glory. He got an
Yeah.
Oscar for Glory when he was, God, he looked to me like he's 18 or 19, but it was just tremendous.
Yeah.
Some of
Yeah.
those
Man on Fire to me is maybe the most underrated movie of any actor that I've
yeah,
seen. It had 38% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes. And I'm like, that
yeah,
movie is fantastic.
right,
It really, especially like I've got a young daughter that's a
right,
teenager. And it's like, I just think like, yeah, those revenge scenes, you've got to watch the beginning of the movie to get to that
right.
point to really
Well,
appreciate it.
you know,
But it's so well done. I love
you
that movie so
you
much.
have to see the buildup of the relationship with him and
Yeah.
Dakota for the ending,
Yeah.
and then the ending is just tragic. The ending is just
Yeah.
like Jesus. But then Christopher Walken is Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
He's just fantastic in that movie.
Yeah.
I think
Uh,
it's one of those ones that a lot of people haven't seen and probably but there's a lot. I don't know, like there's some of the awful other Devil in a Blue Dress was a lot of fun with Don Cheadle and just a lot of just so many.
yeah. Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Flight where he plays the pilot
Oh
that
yeah,
landed
oh
in the
god,
Hudson River?
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
very underrated Denzel movie as
yeah,
well, in my
yeah.
opinion.
And that's another one with at the end of it, he plays the role of a guy who kind of takes responsibility for his own you know shortcomings it was just another one of those things where he plays that very intense sort of haunted persona really well.
Yeah.
But the way he dominates the whole training day, just
Yeah.
just eats it alive, just like they call it chewing scenery. That one scene, King Kong got nothing on me.
I put him up there with Anthony Hopkins as far as like best villain. Like a villain that like you kind of like want to root for a little bit.
Well, the role he played in Gladiator 2, you didn't see it coming necessarily that he was going to be the bad guy. At first, you thought he was going to be the like Proximo in the first one, and then when he turned bad, he went really bad. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. But yeah, no, I mean that was awesome, and Denzel commanded that room, right? He was
Oh,
asking questions and getting responses, and such a cool deal. And there's
you know
been a
what?
lot of celebrities that have could come through Boulder in the last few years, but I don't know if they get any brighter than Denzel Washington star.
Well, in his 70s, I mean, something like that.
He's 70 years old. 70 years
Yeah.
old.
So like it's awesome to me, to have a room full of 17 to 24-year-olds who are in awe of a 70-year-old guy, the respect that he commands as who he is, to see those young guys can normally, 70-year-old guy, we got nothing to hear from that guy. So, that part of it was neat too.
Yeah, no question. So the spring weather was decent enough for them to get outside for their first two spring practices. You saw Julian Lewis, who's from Georgia, getting used to a little bit of that chill in the mornings during the first practice, saying maybe he wished he had put a hoodie on. But it's actually after a rough stretch. Like the springs in Colorado are just a crapshoot, and you can't really wake up and expect good weather. But we get enough of it to kind of get you over those winter doldrums, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I got up and met a friend at 7 a.m. and it was I don't know, like 30 degrees maybe, and then it's over 40 by the time I left at 9. So, if you're gonna have an early morning practice, there's gonna be a chill to it. Then there during the day, it'd be pretty nice.
Well, and you say that, and it's maybe I get this from being from Arizona initially, but it's a dry weather. So like 40 degrees here, like you could put a hoodie and the shorts on and be fine walking around, right? I mean, it's a different type of weather
Yeah,
and I think that's one thing that surprises people when they move to Colorado.
yeah, but the wind here will really freeze you real quick, though. Like
This time of year, yeah.
walking from the parking garage to the courthouse yesterday, and the temperature was nice, but when the wind kicked up, holy crap, it would come like
Yeah.
a knife.
Yeah,
It would.
yeah. Yeah. All right. So this week we get a chance to talk to Pat Shermer Robert Livingston, both of the coordinators. We talked to all three of the scholarship quarterbacks, Caden Salter, Julian Juju Lewis, Ryan Staub. And then on Thursday, we get a chance to talk to the coaches that are now in a position role where they weren't a year ago: Marshall Falk, Gunnar White, Damata Pecco, and George Hilo. Any main takeaways from any of those discussions, things that were different than your impressions or things that stood out to you?
I think that I think it was interesting to me that they all felt very comfortable in what they were doing, and I think what stands out to me is that they're all um, kind of artists of their craft. I mean, you watch it's interesting to listen to Pecco talk about working with Warren Sapp. And arguably Pecco had a big a career as Sapp did. He didn't make the Hall of Fame, but he played 15 years and was, it's hard for a nose tackle to make a Hall of Fame, but he knows as much as Sapp does, and just watching him. Well, I think one thing that stood out to me is him talking about a room full of seniors and what a difference that makes, and then you apply that to the offensive line, which is the same thing, a room full of seniors, and what he said about, it's their last chance. They're trying to make an impression, and I thought it really stuck out to me when he talked about, you get into the NFL and all those guys got homes and mortgages and
Yeah.
wives and kids, and he said, but these guys, they haven't hit the big time and they're still hungry for it. And I think that really touches on the difference that even a 50-year senior has from a guy that's been in the NFL for a few years is, you're still trying to prove something. And so I think that between him and Sapp, they can really teach those guys some things to use. Well, the other thing that I think it was Pecco that said that he said that Warren does a really good job, even coaching the threes. And I thought that was interesting how he put that, because they both played nose tackle in college and the NFL. So coaching the threes is not necessarily what they played all that time, but what that points out that I think people should take from that is, people think, well, the three and the nose is the same damn thing. It really is. It really isn't. Entirely different techniques and locations and all that kinds of things. But so that's what stuck out from him. But aside from that, I just thought that the level of football knowledge that these guys bring to the table is crazy. All the years, somebody mentioned it on the board, all the years that I've been involved with football and coaching offensive line, I'd be intimidated to have Andre Giroud or Domata Pecco come out and be coaching with me, because I was like, you know more than I know, man. What the hell, I mean, you've out there done it, and you in all the years they played in the NFL, those guys learned every dirty trick in the book and every little, like I think Pecco was talking about those guys. So what do I do with this block? Or what if this guy blocks me? Or what if this? And everybody's asking all those questions, and these guys got the answers because they did it for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I was really impressed with Pecco because he's got the right mentality. He is kind of fun-hearted when he meets with you off the field, but you can just see kind of that trigger in him that takes place when he gets out to the practice fields.
And he's so big.
He is a big guy. Yeah. I mean, just get a chance to ask Marshall Falk a question. Uh, that was pretty cool. I got to admit, like, there's sometimes you throughout that press conference, you got to be very much in professional mode, but you get in your car, you drive home, it's like, yeah, Marshall Falk was like right there. And as a child, like that was my favorite running back. It's really cool.
And I watched him working with those guys. And one point he was teaching, like, he said, like, so at one point he's teaching them, like, you're taking a hand off and you get that elbow up. He said, you put that thumb in your chest and that elbow has to go up, right? And he's like,
Yeah,
those are
yeah.
I'm like, that's what people don't understand about coaching, is those little tiny things at every point. Put your foot here instead of here, open up this much instead of that much. And people think it doesn't make a difference, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, yeah. No question. Yeah, I don't think there was anybody questioning, despite the fact that Marshall Falk had never been a coach before, whether or not he was going to be successful in this role. Like that's one of those things. If you had watched him as a player, you just knew that he was going to maximize this group.
Well, it strikes me that it reminds me that every one of these guys from Coach Prime down through all the list of guys we've talked about today, they all mentioned how later in their NFL career they were mentoring younger players, and that's when they first started to get the feel and the itch for coaching. Is that I'm teaching these guys how to play the damn game already, and I like it. I enjoy it. I like teaching these guys, and so that you could be a coach like Pecco said. He felt like he was a coach on the field for his last 5 years in the NFL.
Today's episode is brought to us by Macaulay Capital Fractional CFO Services. Is your business looking for financial guidance and support but not yet big enough to hire a full-time CFO? Well, we have a solution for you. Hiring a fractional CFO who can work with your business on a part-time basis. You get the benefit of having a seasoned financial expert on your team without the commitment or expense of a full-time hire. And here's the best part. It's likely that a partnership with Macaulay Capital will be a win-win situation, meaning that your business will make more money from the guidance of a fractional CFO than the total cost of partnering with us. For more information or to set up a meeting, please visit MacaulayCapital.com. That's MCCAULEY Capital.com. Thanks again to Macaulay Capital for sponsoring this podcast, and the Hungry Toad, still a sponsor of the show, 2543 Broadway in Boulder. They serve up hearty homemade English fare with a wide variety of British beers. We had a chance to do a meetup there recently, and William, I still have not gotten a bad food item at the Hungry Toad. Like they really bring it to you for your taste buds.
No, I gotten the same burger the last two times because it's just so damn good, and everything's fantastic. But I was thinking, doesn't the CEO at Macaulay Capital want you to get a better looking person on the podcast with you, or more interesting, or something like that? He's like, well, you got to keep having that one guy, the bald guy.
Well, I hope he's a big fan of William Gardner because,
Yeah.
I don't know what our referral rate is, but hopefully he's gotten something out of this.
Hopefully we bring something to the table here, but a lot of fun, a lot of good food, and great time seeing people up there at the Hungry Toad.
Yeah, I know their nachos are fantastic. French onion soup, legit. We've gotten the burgers; they're very good. What else have we gotten? The wings are pretty good too.
I did the shepherd's pie, and I did the
shepherd's pies. Yeah, if you're a shepherd's pie guy or fish and chips guy, like that's your spot in Boulder for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll try to get back there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We will be back, I'm sure.
All right. That's our home away from home, the Hungry Toad, 2543 Broadway in Boulder. Cash Cleveland is still taking the team to church, leading those team meetings with a prayer. I know there was some pushback with some of the religious stuff with Coach Prime. I don't want to get too far into a sensitive topic, but I feel like whatever your faith is, you can at least meditate or pray for whatever you want during that time, right? I mean, I don't think that's something that needs to be a controversy in Boulder.
Well, I don't think it ought to be. I mean, it seems kind of dumb to me both ways. I mean, people, if your faith is your faith, then have faith in it, and don't, be upset that somebody else has it and somebody wants to have a prayer. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Your eyes and be respectful. That's all. It's not that big of a deal. It's not forcing you to make changes in your life or big deal or whatever. I don't know. It's just somebody else's faith, and you have a little respect for it. I don't know. I think where people get worried is if they think there's favoritism if you're one thing or the other, but I don't see that. It's just a prayer. So I don't know. I at 60, there's a lot of things that seem kind of silly to me that people get all wrapped around the axle about.
Yeah.
I'm just like, calm down, man. Live your life. Go outside and be in the sunshine and look at a flower or something. I don't know what to tell you.
No,
like me. Me, I'm the calm voice of reason.
Always.
Big Dan, come give me a hug, fella.
So Coach Prime said we have a better team this year than last year. Buy or sell on that?
Well, I think it remains to be seen. I think he's saying we have more talent across the board and maybe more depth. Whether it becomes a better team or not remains to be seen, because team is not always the sum of all the parts. If do they come together? Do they have the chemistry? I think last year they had the really great chemistry and they came together and played well. But we're 2 practices into spring ball with this new group, and so it's too early to say whether it's going to be a better team or not. I do agree that I think we got more talent at most positions. Obviously we lost the Heisman winner and a first round draft pick quarterback, but I think we're going to be solid at those positions and maybe be better overall, because we'll have to do different things with the better players we got. And I think we got a better coaching staff, so yeah, I would buy that. I mean, but again, it still remains to be seen. The work's got to be done. Everything that I see so far says the work is getting done, and the coaches are excited to be there. And, that's more important than people think sometimes, when you've got a killer sort of negative attitude in the coaching staff, that bleeds down to the players. And so everything I've seen so far looks good to me.
Yeah. He also emphasized, when I say he, Coach Prime emphasized their lack of discipline in terms of penalties last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
They obviously need to improve on that. They have tried to set a standard and a discipline in this program. I think that was one of the things under Coach Prime that, a lot of the naysayers just kind of didn't realize that he genuinely is old school.
Yeah.
One of the tough things improving in this category, and they definitely need to, don't get me wrong, especially false starts in offsides, but like other teams have been way chippier against Colorado than they normally are. It kind of reminds me of like pre-Coach Prime, UCLA. Every time they came to Boulder, they would just be assholes. There was one year where they just messed up the visitors' locker room, and it baited Colorado into a lot of penalties as well. And I think they need to improve on that. Like I said, beginning my rant here, but like there's also a thing where like they are just hated on by a lot of these teams, and sometimes it's hard. It's human nature not to want to retaliate a little bit.
But I would say this, yeah, you want to have, in a vacuum, you want fewer penalties is better than more penalties, right? But we didn't lose any of those 4 games because of penalties. Not one of them. Yeah. All 4 of those losses is because we got significantly outplayed on that particular. Well, not to Kansas State. I wouldn't say we got significantly outplayed in that game, but we got significantly outplayed in the other 3 losses, I would say. And Kansas State, we just didn't come up with the big play at the end that we needed. But I wouldn't say that penalties really hurt our season last year, to be honest with you. That we didn't have anything that, that ended up costing us a game or whatever. Obviously, we want to be more disciplined. But yeah, I think there's a certainly there's a thing, Coach McCartney used to talk about, we don't want penalties, but we also want to play with a chip on our shoulder. You want to hit people, you want to push it right to the edge. Sometimes you go over the edge, but some of the penalties, like I still go back to that taking a touchdown away from Jimmy Horn. That's just that to me was just stupid retaliation from a ref against us for no particular reason. You don't call that play. That's just stupid. But in theory, having fewer penalties is a good thing. And certainly the things like false starts is just dumb. That's just silly and stupid. You can't have that. But, things that are, I've always had my coaching philosophy, and the coaches I've played for are always like, penalties that come from aggressiveness and hustle, unless they're just stupid, I can live with, right? You're just going hard and maybe you're a little bit after the whistle and you make whatever and you get a penalty, that's fine. But it's the knucklehead things like the false starts and things like that that you just can't live with. But I wouldn't say that it's the thing that really hurt us too much as a team last year, to be honest.
Robert Livingston said that we see a lot better than we hear. And he's talking about guys that kind of talk about their mission statement coming in, what I'm going to provide for you. And when we talked to him, it was only one practice in the spring. Robert Livingston deals in a lot of coaching cliches, but he's also it seems like a brilliant mind defensively. And I like that sentiment that like show us like there's a lot of talk that goes on nowadays. What we're going to base my opinion on is what I see out here this spring.
And I think that's always the case. And it reminds me somewhere one of the assistant coaches talked about Coach Prime. Might have been Pecco, I think, in that long interview. He talked about Coach Prime talked to him about different guys learn in different ways, and some people are
Yeah.
visual, and people got to walk through it, and some people want to see it on the. He, he said the chalkboard, and I was like, that's kind of funny. He's old like me, whiteboard nowadays, but the different ways of learning things that everybody has. But yeah, we see better than we hear, meaning that when we see it, we everybody can talk. Or I think it's a way of saying talk is cheap. Wouldn't you think? Is kind of talk is
Yeah.
cheap. We can
Yeah.
all talk. Let's see what we actually do on the field. And that's where we are. At this point, two practices in the spring. We're talking about where we are, but we don't know where we are. We got to wait and see how that plays out.
Before the first practice, Coach Prime asked for the position coaches to send the leader in their group up. And we saw tight end Savell Smalls, long snapper Cameron Hawkins, receiver Jalen Miller, running back Isaiah Augustov, safety Ben Finiseth, quarterback Ryan Staub, offensive tackle Jordan Seaton, and edge Arden Walker. And then who else do we see there? Cornerback DJ McKinney, defensive tackle Torrey Carter, and then linebacker Reginald Hughes. Any guys stand out just in terms of guys that are leaders of their group that maybe you wouldn't have thought?
No, not necessarily. Wouldn't have thought, but I like to see some of them. And I think it also goes back to what Coach Pecco was saying about a room full of seniors and being in their last chance. And a lot of those guys are seniors and going on their last chance. Not necessarily, but then I also like seeing some of those. Like I think Savell Smalls may be the surprise of the season for this team. I think he's much better than people give him credit for. But then you like to see a guy like Torian Carter, who lost most of his season due to injury, taking leadership in that room and really, he could be a guy. Everybody's focusing on, Amari McNeil and Jaheim Otis, but a guy like Torian Carter could be a guy that really stands up and makes a difference. But and then Reginald Hughes, it's good to hear that a guy that's brand new in the program is taking leadership in that linebacker room, and you just want to see those guys. I still think that Isaiah Augusto is going to be one of the best running backs in the conference. So the guys that are leaders are not always necessarily the best players, but it's sort of in football, you've got to do something on the field in order to really be a leader that's taken seriously. So I think that says something to their work ethic and playing ability too.
Circling back to Robert Livingston, we heard that he was a finalist for the New Orleans Saints defensive coordinator position. He's back in Boulder, got the highest contract that any assistant in Colorado history has had. Coach Prime is already promoting him as a head coach. I feel like if he does what he did last year in Boulder this year with this group, he's probably off to a different spot. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of people thinking that he is definitely going to be a future head coach.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I think that's, when you look back at the McCartney era, you saw that every year. Those, after the first 3-4 years or so, you saw those coaches getting snatched every year because when you do a great job, people want to get you and they want you to bring the magic to them that they see you bringing somewhere else. And so you do a turnaround on a defense like Livingston did here last year and do it, and then you prove it the following year. You're going to be highly sought after,
Yeah.
So we're going
It's so hard to have that turnaround in year one, too. Usually you see DCs have that turnaround in year two. So,
yeah.
if it falls in line with that, then things could really get good this year. And then, yeah, I mean, you got to just tip your cap and wish him well wherever he goes, right?
And I think he, remains to be seen a little bit at inside linebacker, but I think he's got even more to work with this year than last year, and a lot of guys that are back and already know what he wants, and so it could be very exciting on defense for us this year. And you just kind of have to be excited about it in the moment, and then trust that we get the right guy to replace him when he's gone.
Yeah. Coach Prime is set to add a female assistant to the strength and conditioning coach to the staff. We saw a couple candidates talk to the team this week. You've got Brandon Reyes and you've got Andrew Swayze. And this is a group that is with these players more than anybody else. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that dynamic works. But we've seen Coach Prime really be progressive with some of these hires that he's made.
Yeah, I don't think it makes any difference. If you can coach, you can coach. The key of coaching is, I think, you know what you're talking about, and you're able to connect with the players that you work with, and that you form a relationship with them. And any new coach got to come in and earn respect, and I don't see any reason why that couldn't be true for a female strength and conditioning coach, like anybody else. Come in and show that you know what the hell you're doing. Players want to get better, and they want to play for people that'll help them get better, and also they want to play for people that care about them. And that's just universal. And people, I think a lot of people, a lot of damn coaches making a lot of damn money don't understand what makes a good coach and what makes players follow good coaches, or what makes leadership. And showing people that you care about them and showing them that you know what you're doing and can help them get better at what they're doing is really only what people care about, and the rest of it's just a bunch of garbage.
And obviously Coach Mo, who I forgot to mention there, Marie Sims, also on the staff as well. And the first and second practices, it seemed like the bulk of the first team reps on the O-line. William, anxious to get your recap on this or reaction to this. Is center Cash Cleveland, right tackle, left tackle Jordan Seaton, left guard Kareem Harden, right guard Zy Chrysler, and right tackle Mana Taimani. I had Taimani and Chrysler as my starters on the right side in a different role, swapping those guys from guard to tackle. But you watch those guys line up together; they're pretty similar statue.
Yeah, and I don't think, I think we got to start by saying, let me tell you, as an offensive line coach, that first depth chart means absolutely nothing until you go through practice and put the pads on and hit and see who does what. That first depth chart is based on what you had last year, maybe, or how hard they worked, how they looked like doing drills and whatever. But you don't really know until you put them in pads and face a full defense who's going to work well with each other, who fits best in each spot. So I wouldn't put too much into that, except that it's based. You'd have to ask those three coaches why they picked that particular lineup, but I think it's mostly based on what they see in workouts and drills and shirts and shorts, and don't write off anybody else that's in the group. It doesn't mean that Aki Yakambi is not going to fit in there, or Zach Owens or what have you. But it's not surprising to me to see Taimani at tackle. He was always looked at as a tackle, as a prospect. Played some tackle at the places he's been before. He's 6'4", got some good length. And it takes me back to right at the beginning of the winter conditioning. One day he was out there working in the sand pit with Jordan Seaton, and that probably should have been a clue that maybe he was working on tackle sort of stuff,
Yeah.
So that's not too surprising to me. Everybody's sort of said, Zy Chrysler was second team All Big Ten at guard 2 years.
Honorable mention all Big Ten. Yeah.
At guard. Yeah. So clearly he's good at guard. I think he could also play the tackle. He certainly got the height and the length for it. So I think it's also interesting that you see Philip Houston out there dressed, not particularly participating, but he's not missing, and he's not in a big brace or with his knee on a scooter or something like that. So that's a positive thing to me. I think that he's out walking around and what have you. So I think
he Omari Miller at receiver, Samuel Okunlola and Keaton Wade are kind of the notable guys I mentioned or noticed were not out there this week. But I think in spring ball you're being more precautious. You don't want to have any setbacks.
You got a couple weeks and then you got a spring break, and then maybe the last 2 weeks you see them out there. I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
see. But yeah, like you said, there's no point in risking anything. Philip Houston's shown what he can do. He doesn't necessarily need spring ball, so let's get some depth developed by giving all those reps to other people.
The guys fielding punts in practice this week were Isaiah Harge, Quinn X Farrakhan Jr., a true freshman, and another true freshman, Quentin Gibson. There's a lot of explosiveness out of those guys. Very, very kind of similar burst out of those guys, but Harge is a guy that's been in college a little bit more. It might not be as much a deer in headlights, but we'll see. Farrakhan Jr. had, what was it, like 4 returns on special teams in one high school game this past season. And Quentin Gibson is just a threat to score every time he touches the ball.
Yeah, and that those guys all played against super high competition levels. I don't think they're going to be deer in the headlights by any means. I think those guys play, I think that sort of wide receiver position kind of comes with that sort of bravado or I'm great anyway, and so I don't think that'll be a problem for those guys at all. And you might not want to punt to us this year because we got some guys that can do some things,
Yeah, you need that bravado in that room for sure.
Yeah.
And one guy that's shown a lot of bravado this spring is Jordan Seaton. You can tell he's got that swagger of a second-year guy.
Yeah, once you've been through a full season, you've played. Now he's played 13 games against Power 5 teams. Not all 13, but one was Colorado State, whatever. But anyway, 13 games at the college level, and you kind of got that. You've got you've seen it, right? Maybe you haven't seen the best defensive ends in the game yet, or whatever, but you've got a good taste of what this level is like. And with his abilities, what he's found out is, hey man, and I can relate to this too. In this last week of work, I was like, damn, I'm pretty good at this, and it brings a confidence, that you can stand up there and do your thing. And so with Jordan Seaton now, he's coming into it. He's had 2 winners. He's getting bigger and stronger. He moves better. He understands the technique. He's seen what the conference has to offer, and he knows he's the best out there. So, you just get that confidence that goes with it, and that will only grow. He's still just developing himself. A year from now, he'll be even bigger and better. But that allows him to be the leader out there. He played all those snaps, never really had a bad game so much, and just allows him to take the next step now. And I think now I don't know. I posted a video of all those guys doing a drill where you could see them from the front and see them next to Garode and Hageman, and I'm like, we got to. And I got mocked for it, I guess, because what the hell, you can't put anything about football on our board. It's got to be about, whatever. But anyway, what you can clearly see is these guys.
Whatever. What's whatever?
Yeah. Well, how much Tad Boyle sucks, or how great Tad Boyle is, or what the NIL is, or, what how much we ought to pay Prime or whatever. But hey, put something up about football, you get crickets. Hey. Offensive line, crickets. Hey, look, here's what we're doing on offense, crickets. Put up hey, Coach Prime's salary, 4 pages.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I don't disagree with you. I wish there were more people that disliked drama more and loved football more. Like, it's like, yeah. So go on. Sorry, yeah, I baited you into that.
No, I put up GIFs and put up videos and explain a play, right? And we might get 7 responses, and people just don't want to see it, so I don't waste my time doing it. So, but what I saw in that one video is undeniable, regardless of the mockery. Is you see these guys next to Andre Giroud, how big they are, right? Because this guy played 10 years in the NFL, and they're all just as big as he is. And I was watching that video of them all kind of going back, doing they were doing a pass protection footwork drill, and they're freaking huge. Oh my God, they're big. These guys, looking. I think am I thinking of? Chauncey Gooden's as big as a Mack truck, for Christ's sake. And then I think it was Zy Chrysler is the biggest. Oh no, Jay Gardenhire. Holy crap, that he's a flat iron. Just put him out there. Take 3 seconds to run around him. So,
Yeah.
And I said, it's like, I don't know if they'll be any good, but they won't look bad. They won't look undersized. So we'll see. I think these 3 guys teaching them.
And I'm anxious to see how that works out, because it seems like.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. Go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off.
They have to figure out amongst themselves, like I said earlier, if you're not a little bit intimidated by having Andre Garode come out there to help you coach, then you got more arrogance than I got, man, because that's one of the greats, right? And so you have to negotiate. And I'm sure they had this conversation with Coach Prime. How is this going to work? How are you going to fit with each other? Did they get along with each other? And so watching, some of those drills, and it kind of looked like Andre Giroud was the guy right in there with the players, getting hands on and saying more. And I don't know how they'll split it up in terms of positions and stuff, but those 3 guys have to figure out a way for the 3 of them to all both make a difference with the players, but all have to feel like they're valued and that they're respected and listened to, because everybody wants to be, valued in their position. So they have to figure that out, just like Pecco and Sapp have to figure it out. Although, that's a slightly different situation. But it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this offensive line coaching staff works, because none of them is a veteran coach so much. They all have lots of time in football, and we'll see how it goes. But the other interesting thing to me was the discussion with or the interview with not Hageman, not Garode, but Gunnar White, talking about how he's had that relationship with Chauncey Gooden since Chauncey Gooden was a sophomore in high school, which shows you some of his recruiting ability. And one of the keys to coaching, I'll say again, is being able to connect with your players. And clearly he connects with that kid. So he obviously has some skills in that area.
He's going to be a better coach than people think. But it's one of those things like, having covered this program for so long, and you try to flush some of the stuff that's pre-Coach Prime, but the Coach Prime is known Gunnar White better than most people on this planet for the last 4 or 5 years. You've seen him be cutthroat with some other positions. It's not like he's this loyalist that just doesn't demand things out of certain positions. You got to be a lead at your position or you're going to get replaced. And so we'll see. But at least the way he connects with the recruits, it's better than a lot of people. And, I said that about Brian Michalowski, who was an outside linebackers coach at Colorado. Mm-hmm. He got promoted. Similar kind of backlash to him. And he's been a revered member of Oregon staff the past couple of years with your best friend up there in Eugene. And so, I think sometimes we get stuck on these resumes coming in, but there's a lot of factors that make a successful coach. And sometimes on a recruiting standpoint, it's having that extra level of care to when you call a recruit, you're actually helping them, even if they don't commit to you. And if those kids are smart, they're the type of kids you want to commit to you, be part of your program for in this portal era, multiple years. That's the type of mentality you want to respond to your coaching, from a recruiting standpoint.
Well, I think everybody's looking for sincerity in their relationships. Football is not any different, right? The people that you want to work with and the people you want to work for, you want to believe that they care about you, right?
Yeah.
When it's not obvious, I think it's pretty clear to most people when somebody's just following, just going through the motions or whatever. But when somebody really cares about you, I think it's pretty obvious, and it shows, And I think we get caught up on the resumes because in part it matters, right? And part of the problem we've had in CU is that we keep being the starting point for a lot of these coaches, and then they go on to be pretty damn good coaches down the road, but nobody's great when they start, right? And that's why, like people talk about what's his name? He used to be the offensive line coach here. And now he's going to be an offensive coordinator. It's like people get better at their jobs, right? Well, I mean, not everybody, but I don't have any problem admitting that the guy's a great coach now. But, when he was here, he wasn't ready to be that coach. So, I just want us to see, I'd like, we should be hiring people who get their experience somewhere else for the most part, it seems to me. But you just want to see guys who know how to coach the position and are good at it in those spots. So I think bringing in a veteran NFL guy like Andre Garreau really is a big damn deal for that group.
I mentioned Isaiah Harge earlier. He was returning punts in practice this week. He wore the gray jersey in practice last year. He's in a white jersey early on the spring. He's practicing at slot receiver. And Sean Niehoff and I were going through the positions trying to make predictions, William, and we didn't mention Isaiah Harge once because we didn't really quite know where he was going to fit in. But at the end of that show, we had to do like a 10-minute thing on Isaiah Harge because this is going to be a fun utility player for the Buffs. Right. I don't know what position he's going to play in the spring game. Wherever the injuries pile up, Isaiah Harge is your guy.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be needed at cornerback just because there's not necessarily enough bodies, but there's a lot of depth there in terms of a two deep even without him. But he's the kind of guy you want.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. I think R.J. Johnson moving over there kind of helps with being able to put Isaiah on offense.
But like you said, it depends on if anybody gets hurt or not. Then you may need, and I don't know, somebody gets hurt at safety, you might need Johnson there. But so, those guys are the kinds of guys you want to keep on the field if they can make plays for you, and so as the season goes along, as the spring goes along, we'll sort of see how those things develop and who really steps up. And, some guys have a sophomore slump or whatever, and competition keeps going on with guys, and sometimes guys step forward and fall back, and so it'd be fun. I would like to have more Isaiah Harge type guys on the team that you could fit in anywhere. Swiss Army knife. Here's a guy, put him in, he's going to be just as good at this spot as he is at that spot. And you can't account for him if you're the other team. So I think we were all spoiled forever by Travis Hunter, and we won't see anything like that again. Well, I don't know. I mean, hell, maybe we didn't see him coming either, I guess, but you never know. But I don't think it's likely that we're going to see anything exactly like that. But having those kinds of guys on your team is what makes a team dangerous,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big Isaiah Harge fan. So, and R.J. Johnson, by the way, he was a beast in a couple of those one-on-one reps they released. I know you can only take so much from that type of stuff, and it's usually kind of actually weighted more towards the offense in those situations. But it's fun to get back to seeing some of those clips, though. I think it kind of feeds just the CU football love to just kind of get you through this offseason.
And I like seeing Draylon Miller at receiver be the leader of that group. You would have thought Terrell Timmons or something like that, but seeing a guy with his level of talent and ability, and he's the one that had that crazy reception where he ran through like three guys to get the touchdown, right? Yeah, yep. Okay, because that will, and I got to cement that in my brain that it's him, because that's one of my favorite plays from last year.
Yeah,
was just, my God, I could watch that on replay, because that kind of desire to be great, to score, is really what you need. So you look at the guys playing receiver, and then you look at those three young guys returning punts and into that mix, and we're continuing to bring real first level talent into this program.
Yeah, no doubt. It's fun, William. It's always fun to catch up with you. Thanks for taking time out on your Saturday to join us. And maybe we can do this a week from now and recap week 2 of spring ball.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even talked about quarterbacks. Don't we need to have a quarterback controversy or something? Or
I think we're too early for that. We talked to the quarterbacks. Yeah. Was there anything that stood out to you about those conversations?
I'm just making fun, but I think there hasn't been enough done yet to have a feel one way or the other for that,
Well, and I've already done stories on Caden Salter, Julian Lewis, and I got one coming on, Ryan Staub. So we've got your quarterback coverage
Yeah,
in written form on BuffStampede.com.
and I don't know that 15 practices in spring will answer that either.
They're not going to name a starter coming out of spring. I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure that any of them will have enough time to really establish themselves as that. Well, I mean, if they do, I don't know. It's conceivable somebody's like so far ahead of the others, but I would be surprised if that's the case. And it's nice to see Staub taking leadership and he seems like a guy who's just very confident in himself. You play behind a guy that's going to be one of the top 10 picks in the draft. And so you have to have a self-confidence in yourself. They go out and they bring another guy in, they bring a freshman in, and you're still here, so you have to have faith in yourself, but to still be a leader in that room, it shows me that he's a team guy, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt. I think most people would have hit the portal and gone somewhere else. And so, I think Colorado fans want the best player, obviously, to start behind center. But if Ryan Staub proves to be that, we're going to get some comments on this, William. They really don't like when we bring up Ryan Staub.
Ryan Staub.
I'm still putting him third, by the way. It's not like I'm changing my prediction. I just, somebody that's been in the program that's taken their lumps, like you want to root for that person.
Well, let's really make them crazy and piss them off, and we'll say, can't wait to see Ryan Staub take a snap from Cash Cleveland.
But I want to see what McGill does when he gets healthy at center. I think Caden Salter's I wrote a story, just his dual threat capabilities make him such an intriguing player in that position. We had this whole discussion. Obviously, Cordell Stewart was the last true dual threat because we're not giving Bernard Jackson that title. I think there's a part of every Colorado fan that wants to see Khalil Tate do that to another team. And maybe that will never happen. And I'm not trying to put that on Caden Salter, but like just that ability to break down a defense's will to like fight because they're doing their job. The play breaks down and the quarterback squeaks out for a 28-yard gain. How many times does that happen against Colorado? And we just don't ever see it happening against the other team. And Shedeur had some moments like that. Don't get me wrong, but consistently not part of this program.
The other position that you would say the same thing as tight end. How many times have we seen a tight end eat us alive? And sure would be nice to have us do that with ours.
Yes, you used to be like one of the best programs in the country for tight ends. It's been a minute though, huh?
Need to get back there. And I think, I think with Smalls and hopefully the Hart is healthy and Zach Atkins, we got three guys that could do that. So
yeah,
I don't know. I guess what I come out of after the first week is there's a lot of guys to keep an eye on, man. A lot of question marks, but a lot of fun competition, fun for us, I guess. And we didn't even talk about guys like Tyler Brown or some of those guys. And so there's just a lot of guys to keep an eye on for the next 13 practices and see who develops. And I think by the end of the spring ball, we're going to have some themes at least starting to develop. We may not have answers to a lot of these questions, but we may start to see some themes develop. And when they start going live team stuff, I'm very curious to see what the offense is going to look like.
Yeah. And I think what kind of building off your point there, William, is that this football team is again going to have depth in 2025, which is an exciting proposition. And
and the depth last year saved us sometimes, like the depth on the deep line was nuts.
Edge. I mean, Keaton Wade, we didn't see till like week 7 or something like that. And then he was just shot out of a cannon.
You lose a guy like Carter early in the season, and other seasons that'd have been the end of it,
Yeah.
We didn't miss a beat. So
well, was fun. I say this often on the show. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We gotta pace ourselves a little bit here, William, but always fun to talk to you football with you. I appreciate you again for taking time out of your schedule, and hopefully we can do this again next week.
Well, it's always a lot of fun when we get going. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not in the mood, or I'm burned out on this whole thing, and then we get started. We just get into it and have fun with it.
That's
This
where we were both at today. It was good. It was good.
this is the fun side of it, is the damn
Yeah.
football. This
Yeah.
is the point why we're here, I think.
I think so. I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, right.
So we'll keep trying to push that narrative.
Yeah.
But thanks again to you, and I appreciate everybody out there for tuning in.